What was the brutal daily reality of Gulag survival? Imagine waking up every day knowing that your life depends on endless hard labor in freezing cold conditions. That was the daily life for prisoners in the Gulag, the Soviet Union's forced labor camp system. These camps were set up to help build the country's economy, but the reality for inmates was far from the official stories. Most prisoners were arrested without proper trials, sometimes for minor crimes like stealing food during times of famine. They were packed into overcrowded train cars with no heat or sanitation, and many didn't survive the journey. Once they arrived, they faced brutal conditions in remote areas like Siberia or the Arctic, where the cold alone could kill. Life in the camps was centered around forced work. Prisoners worked long hours in dangerous jobs such as mining, logging, or constructing roads and buildings. The tools they used were often primitive, like pickaxes to break frozen ground. The work was exhausting and often deadly. The Soviet government claimed these camps helped develop the economy, but in reality, they relied on human suffering to meet production goals. Food was scarce and rationed based on work output. Many prisoners were so hungry they became weak and sick. Malnutrition and disease spread easily because of poor shelter and hygiene. Only a few prisoners had proper winter clothing, and many wore rags or even tires wrapped around their bodies to stay warm. Conditions inside the camps were overcrowded and filthy. Barracks were poorly built with thin walls and little heating. Prisoners slept on wooden bunks, often sharing space with dozens of others. Disease was common, and medical care was almost non-existent. Violence among prisoners was frequent, driven by competition for food, warmth, and safety. Guards kept constant watch, and any small mistake could lead to punishment like beatings, solitary confinement, or even execution. The mental strain was intense, with prisoners living in constant fear and isolation, cut off from families and the outside world. Despite the suffering, the Soviet authorities promoted the Gulag as a way to reform criminals and boost the economy. The camps provided cheap labor for huge projects like the White Sea-Baltic Canal or the Trans-Siberian Railway. Millions of people suffered, and hundreds of thousands died from overwork, starvation, disease, or violence. The harsh daily reality of Gulag survival shows a stark contrast to the official narrative of progress. It reveals a system built on human pain, with long-lasting effects on the social and economic fabric of the region. The legacy of these camps still sparks debates about forced labor and the costs paid in human lives.